Hello and welcome from the sidelines of the Tulane Corporate Law Institute. I'm Jarrett Banks, editor-at-large of CorpGov. Joining me today is Jessica McDougall, a partner and chair of corporate governance and shareholder engagement practice at Longacre Square. Jessica, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Great, let's get right into it. What's on the horizon for proxy season this year, and how are asset managers thinking about shareholder proposals?
So I think I've said this for most of my career as I've been in the governance and stewardship space for the last 15 years or so, that every proxy season is different. But I think this one is really shaping up to be something unique. And from the seat that I sit in and working with corporates ahead of their annual meetings, the shareholder proposals this year are very precise. And what I mean by that is they're not prescriptive in the way that perhaps they have been in past years that would have deterred institutional investors from supporting them, but really getting to the crux of the issue that companies have either been lacking on or ones that these shareholder proponents believe are material to their business. So I'm curious to see how it will shake out, but they're well crafted is what I will say. And so very much looking to institutional investors' voting guidelines themselves to help craft the language in the shareholder proponent proposals, which I think is an interesting tactic this year.
All right, let's get into some activist campaigns as they relate to material business risks and opportunities. You talk about Starbucks,
Yes.
Norfolk Southern.
Absolutely. So the Starbucks campaign with SOC was just settled a couple days ago. And, I think this is a really interesting case because since the publication of the universal proxy, or knowing that that was forthcoming, there was this anticipation of how that tool could be utilized for single issue activist campaigns. And I think many put the SOC campaign in that bucket, but I think that was very short-sighted in trying to categorize it, because I think this is a really unique example of how an issue such as that related to labor, perhaps categorized as a social issue for many investors, was actually an operating issue for Starbucks. They have created a business that is centered on customer service, on creating a space for people to go, and they rely on their employees to help create that atmosphere. So where those labor interactions go awry, or where employees are not satisfied with their job, that can really impact how customers perceive a certain brand. Mm-hmm. And so I thought this was particularly interesting because it wasn't just ESG. It was a topic that was extremely material to a business and very, very critical to how Starbucks would be able to deliver long-term shareholder value. So this particular case ultimately settled earlier this week with the notion that there would be further discussions on how Starbucks would be managing its human capital going forward and how those labor-related issues might be smoothed out in the future.
Okay. And Norfolk Southern.
Yes. Another interesting campaign that's bubbling up. And, this has a lot of ties to environmental related considerations, of course, with the derailment that occurred in East Palestine last year, a little over a year ago at this point, but one that is focused on the operations of a company. How can safety be integrated into a smoother operating model, and how can the right management team help facilitate that? But more so, kind of one layer up, how can you make sure that you have the right directors in the boardroom to hold those management team members accountable? And so I think this campaign is also particularly interesting because the slate that has been put forward has individuals from a wide range of expertise, from regulatory, policy, operations, individuals that have been knee-deep in the railroad space for most of their career and really understand how these elements of safety and management team expertise play into the operations, but also those key metrics that allow shareholders to assess how they can best value their investment.
So this one might not only create value, but also, help with public safety.
Yes, because one of the key components of railroads is where there are more efficient, more smooth operations, there are also less safety accidents, which is, of course, good from an employee perspective, a customer perspective, an environmental perspective. It's a win-win-win.
Great. Last question. We've had some SEC climate-related disclosures out. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so these were newly released just yesterday, long awaited. But I think what will really be interesting in the years to come is how precise companies are able to be in the timelines that they've been asked to provide this information. And from the seat that I was in previously on the stewardship team at BlackRock, this is a conversation that we've been having since 2017, asking for material climate-related disclosures to just understand how companies are positioning their business in the context of climate change, potential taxes on emissions, and what that really means from an operating perspective. So I think now that there's some additional guidance that's been put forth, it's much less aspirational from institutional investors asking companies to disclose in line with frameworks that were not mandatory, but they believed help provide that appropriate information, and really, starting to coalesce around agreed upon standards that companies can look to.
All right, another extremely important topic. We'll leave it there. I'm Jarrett Banks, signing off from New Orleans here at the Tulane Corporate Law Institute. Thank you.
Thank you.